Hi everyone, welcome to the Lifestyles Medicine podcast. This is Daniel Cho, Managing Director of Pathways to Wholeness Lifestyle Medicine, and I'm here with Dr. George Cho, our Medical Director. And today we're continuing our series on a lifestyle medicine approach to weight management. And in this episode, we're specifically going to talk about an area of weight management that we might not really think about when we think about weight loss. When we think about weight loss, we think about maybe dieting, exercise, maybe bariatric surgery, but I think few of us would think about sleep. And there's growing research right now suggesting the importance of sleep for not only preventing a weight gain, but also maybe even in management. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So first, let's talk about sort of the research. So what is the research right now that shows the potential link between sleep and excess weight? Yeah, there's some studies that are coming out that suggest that there is indeed a potential association between poor sleep and excess weight gain. So there's one study where they looked at over 68,000 nurses, and they want to answer the question: can poor sleep lead to excess weight, or is there an association? Mm-hmm. Right? And so they got these nurses and they tracked these nurses over time. And the findings were very interesting. One of the metrics they looked at was a gain of 33 pounds. So over time, how many nurses gained 33 pounds? And then they associate that with the level of sleep. What they noticed was that those who had 7 to 8 hours of sleep had the least risk of gaining those 33 extra pounds. If people had only 6 hours of sleep, their risk of gaining that weight was 12%. But if they had 5 or less hours of sleep, their risk actually increased to 32% of gaining 33 pounds. Then they also looked at how many of these nurses became obese. And after 16 years, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, those who had that amount of sleep had the lowest risk of becoming obese. Those who slept 6 hours had a 6% increased risk, and those who had 5 or less hours of sleep had 15% increased risk of becoming obese. So this is an association, so it is not causal. However, it was a very large study done on a lot of people, and it seems to suggest that there could be a potential link here, that poor sleep can be associated with an increased risk of gaining excess weight and also becoming obese, which then obviously has huge health implications, because if we're obese, the risk of a lot of different medical conditions goes up as well. Yeah, that's really fascinating. And so here in these studies you mentioned, it shows that less sleep seems to increase your risk for gaining excess weight. That's right. And the sweet spot, or the sweet time, the sweet number of hours seems to be about 7 to 8 hours. 7 to 8. And isn't that the typical recommendation? That's People right. say like around 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That's correct. And those recommendations, when you follow them, it seems like there's potentially you lower your risk of gaining weight. So is there are there any studies that show the link between too much sleep and maybe weight gain? Yeah, so there's some studies that do suggest that too much sleep might not be the greatest either when it comes to weight management. So for instance, in a study called the Quebec Family Study, they noticed they tracked people's change in weight over 6 years. What they noticed was that those who slept 7 to 8 hours per night had the least weight gain. And they also had the least increase in their waist circumference as well. However, very interestingly, those who slept 5 to 6 hours and those who slept 9 to 10 hours, they had about the similar amount of increase in their weight as well as their waist circumference. So it's your U-shaped curve. Yes. Where too little is not good and too much seems to be not the greatest either. So in this particular study, they said 7 to 8 hours seems to be, again, the ideal, whereas 6 and less hours and also 9 to 10 hours seems to be not the greatest. Yeah, I'm looking at the graphs here in that study, and the bars for the short sleep
5 to 6, and the bar for the long sleepers 9 to 10 are almost identical.
That's correct. So there was not much difference.
We have some data here that suggests there might be an association between poor sleep and weight gain. So what could be the reason for that? What's like the physiological underpinning of that link, potential link?
Yeah, this is fascinating. So for our listeners, it all comes down to hormones and how sleep affects those hormones. Well, when it comes to weight management, there are two hormones that we need to discuss. One is leptin and one is ghrelin. Now, ghrelin, they both affect your appetite. Ghrelin is released by your stomach and it increases your appetite, whereas leptin is released by your fat cells actually, and it decreases your appetite. And it seems like sleep affects these hormones. There was a very fascinating study where they compared those who slept 10 plus hours and those who slept less than 4 hours. So they got a bunch of people slept for 10 hours, then a bunch of other people they slept for 4 hours. And they looked at the levels of leptin and the levels of ghrelin. Now, those who slept 10 hours, they had higher levels of leptin, which is good, and they had lower levels of ghrelin, which is good for weight management. Again, leptin lowers hunger appetite, and ghrelin increases appetite. However, those who slept for 4 hours and less, they had 18% lower levels of leptin, and they had 28% higher levels of ghrelin. So again, so you can see here how the hunger hormones are being affected by the level of sleep that you're getting. More sleep seems to have higher levels of the hormone that lowers your appetite, and lower levels of the hormone that increases appetite, whereas it's the exact opposite for those who are having 4 hours or less sleep.
Yeah, so that's really fascinating because I think, many of us, we know that sleep is really important for things like memory, just resting in general. But here we see that science is showing that sleep also affects your hunger hormones.
That's correct, yes.
But it's interesting here though that in this study it says that those who slept for 10 plus hours, they had higher levels of leptin, which would suggest your hunger would go down. But we just talked previously about the U-shaped curve where 9 to 10 more hours seems to be associated with a higher weight gain.
Yes, and the science in this area is still growing. There needs to be more research done.
Yeah.
But I think the lesson that we can learn here is that sleep deprivation is not good. 4 hours or less of sleep, right? And that getting adequate amounts of sleep seems to help better regulate those hunger hormones.
So did the change in the hormones actually affect hunger?
Yes, that's a great question, and the answer is yes. They asked the participants about their levels of ratings of hunger itself. So not just the hormones, but they asked like, are you hungry?
Yeah,
right?
right.
And how about your appetite? And they found that the hormonal picture matched the appetite and the hunger rating. So for instance, those who were sleeping for 4 hours, they had 24% higher hunger ratings and also 23% higher ratings of appetite. And what they found was that those who had sleep deprivation, they craved more sweets, salty foods like cake, candy, cookies, ice cream, chips, and they actually consumed more carbs as well. They had more cravings for carbs. So the very foods that tend to be associated with weight gain was the things that they were craving more.
That's really interesting. So these are snacks. So is there any studies that show a link between sleeping and maybe like snacking?
Yes, there does seem to be an association with snacking and decreased sleep. So in one study, they looked at people who slept for 5.5 hours as compared to those who slept for 8.5 hours. And it seems that those who are getting about 5.5 hours of sleep, They were snacking more, particularly on high carb foods. And interestingly, they were snacking between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. So this is late at night, which is definitely not the time you want to be eating, much less snacking. So, and they were consuming more calories from snacks as well. So there does seem to be an association between what we would call sleep deprivation, insufficient sleep, and behaviors like snacking.
So it seems that when you sleep less or don't get enough sleep, you sort of maybe get hungry during the late parts of the day. That causes you to eat more. And potentially that might be linked with weight gain.
Yes, that seems to be the case. Yes, and it's really bad because they're eating at the time that you really do not need to be eating.
Right.
And in fact, they were eating 200 plus more calories from snacks compared to those who were having adequate sleep. And 200 calories over time does build up.
Does the time when we sleep matter when it comes to weight and appetite?
It seems like there's some data to suggest that the answer is yes. There was one very, very interesting study where they compared people who were sleeping at least by 12 o'clock and those who are sleeping around 3 a.m. So these are night owls who are sleeping very late. They were staying up to the wee hours of the morning, and they looked at cravings and what they're eating and so forth. And the results were very, very interesting. Those who were sleeping very late at 3 a.m. They consume more meals per week of fast food. They ate less fruits and vegetables. They consumed more sugar and sodas. They were drinking more caffeinated drinks, which is probably not very surprising. They were probably really tired. They consumed more calories at dinner time compared to those who were sleeping earlier. And they were consuming more calories after 8 p.m. compared to those who were sleeping before 12. In fact, significantly more calories after 8 p.m., which is the time that your body wants to rest, not digest, right? So yes, it does seem like there's some evidence to suggest that the time that you sleep does seem to affect appetite and what you seem to your eating patterns, which then would affect your weight as well.
Yeah, this I find this study really fascinating because fast food, soda drinks, caffeinated drinks, these are high calorie foods that could very well be linked with increased weight gain.
That's right. Yes.
So when would be the best time to sleep to regulate your hunger or your appetite?
Yes. That's a great question. I want to to answer that question. I want to quote from a study done by some researchers in this area of sleep and weight. They say here, and I'm quoting now, a multitude of organisms, ranging from single cellular organisms, plants, and flies to humans, have developed an endogenous timing system that optimally synchronizes physiology and behavior, for example, rest and activity cycles, with the solar day. So basically, what that means is it seems like the best time to sleep is with the day nights, the light and day cycle, right? So when the sun goes down, that's pretty much the best time to go to bed. Our body seems to be regulated to work with the rising of the sun and the going down of the sun. So when it gets dark, that's the time to go to bed. When the sun comes up, that's the best time to wake up. Right? But of course, in our day today, we have electricity and all that, which allows us to stay up even though the sun is down, and that could be great for getting more stuff done. But in terms of regulation of our bodies, our hormones, and so forth, it doesn't seem like that is really the best. So it's hard to pinpoint like 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock. It doesn't seem like it's hard to derive that specific time as the best time to go to bed, but it seems like when it is dark, that is the best time to go to bed. when it is light, when the sun does come up, that's the best time. It's because you have regulatory systems in your brain, right, that seems to work with that timing.
Yeah, I think this is a really important message because, as you were saying, many of us we sleep late, and it's so easy to sleep late, and not only because of electricity, of course, but just the work pressures. I think, checking emails late at night, try to get that last email sent before you head off to sleep, or just even entertainment. Watching Netflix, YouTube late into the night, socializing on social media late into the night, and we might. I think we all know that if we do that in the morning, we're not going to feel as great. But science is starting to show that this might actually be affecting our risk for weight gain.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. The growing amount of research in this area, and even the Obesity Canada, which we're members of, suggests that sleep is an important part of weight management as well. So the research is definitely growing. It's strong, and healthy weight is not just about what you eat and what you exercise, but also what you sleep, which affects what you eat and how you feel that day.
That's right. And would I say that sleep itself will make you obese? From this data, probably not. However, can it contribute? Seems like the growing evidence suggests that it could. And especially in our society where just the rates of excess weight, obesity is going up, we just need to do everything we can to stay healthy, to lower our risk of excess weight gain, and sleep is definitely one of them. And sleep is not just great for weight management, for regulating our hunger hormones. It's great for many other things as well. So this is an important message on various different levels, not just weight gain.
So to be honest, in modern life, it's very hard to sleep early. So let's get practical. So what are some tips to help us modern people who are always on 24/7, how can we get some good sleep?
Yeah, well, I think some very simple pointers are sleep before 12.
Okay.
Probably 9, 10-ish, 11-ish, probably better. So sleep before 12. That's probably could be good. Practice good hygiene, sleep hygiene. So no lights like from electronics before bedtime. That really just makes you wired and makes you stay awake. So an hour before your bedtime, get away from the electronics and just go to bed and keep the place dark. Keep the room cool. So that seems to promote better sleep as well. And also, if people are finding that they're having a hard time sleeping, so you're kind of rolling around in bed for 40 minutes to an hour, instead of doing that, what we recommend is get up after 15 minutes of not being able to fall asleep. And then you go out of the room and you do something relaxing until you start to get a little bit dozy. Then you go back into your room. If we're rolling around in a bed awake, your mind will start associating your bed and your room with waking up, with staying awake. You don't want to do that. So you if you can't fall asleep, you leave the room, do something relaxing, then you come back. They also recommend that you use your room only for sleep and sex, so that your mind can associate your room with sleeping, and so that it will be easier to fall asleep. And another very important thing is just to make sure that you do make it a priority. And I think that's really important because I think a lot of people, we don't see sleep as a priority. If we're really used to sleeping late, then start to just slowly push back or push forward the sleeping time. But yeah, those are some simple tips to help people try to fall asleep.
I think also maybe creating a schedule for yourself, like planning the day so that you don't feel overwhelmed or have all these things come up after work, for instance. Then you have to, as you try to get all these things done, you find out it's like 10 o'clock.
Right.
It's already late. So I think maybe planning your day is also really important as well. So you know exactly when you wake up, you eat your breakfast, send your kids to school, go to work, whatever. You come back and you know what's happening in the evening, so that you could plan your day so you fall asleep or go to bed at least by 9 or 10.
That's right, yes. And also realizing that, there is tomorrow. So you might have a lot of work and things to do, but there's always the next day.
Mm-hmm.
For in most cases that we can always push back and just leave stuff for the next day. But you do need your sleep, and I want to encourage everyone to take it very seriously.
Yeah. There is tomorrow in terms of, if it doesn't work out today in terms of trying to get to sleep earlier, you could try again tomorrow, right? Never give up.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Also, I want to add one more thing. Sometimes when we wake up in the middle of the night or in the morning, we feel very groggy, right? But other times when you wake up, you feel very sharp and you're able to just kind of just get out of bed. And one of the reasons for that is because it might be because we're waking up in the middle of a sleep cycle. Yeah, your sleep goes through cycles, and when we wake up in the middle of that cycle, we're usually very groggy, and we have a hard time getting out of bed. So there's a easy way to kind of calculate when you should fall asleep depending on when you want to wake up, and a great resource for that is a website called sleepcalculator.com. So that's sleepcalculator.com, and basically you could punch in the hour that you want to wake up, and then starts calculating you for calculating the times that you should fall asleep in order for you to wake up not in the middle of a cycle but at the end of a cycle. So I think I found that to be a great resource as well. Yeah, so sleepcalculator.com.
So we'll include a link to that on the podcast page so you could check it out yourself as well. So this is really important in lifestyle medicine because sleep is one of the core areas of lifestyle medicine. So Dr. Cho, thank you so much for taking us through that. So that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to learn more about Pathways to Wholeness Lifestyle Medicine, you can visit us on our website, www.pathwaystowholeness.ca. You can also learn more about our clinics. We have 2 clinics in Toronto, the North York Lifestyle Medicine Clinic and Junction Lifestyle Medicine Clinic, and you can learn more about those on our website, pathwaystowholeness.ca/clinic. And again, if you have friends or family who you think could benefit from the simple yet powerful principles of lifestyle medicine, please, we encourage you to share this podcast with them as well. So again, thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to the Lifestyle is Medicine podcast. We hope you'll join us next time.